Hello, it's John, Bench Fisherman. I had to do a voiceover on this one because I lost my audio. This is a Penn 704Z that I picked up at auction. It's in pretty good shape. So it's one of my favorite reels. I have probably a couple dozen of these or more. And when I see one at auction, if it's a good price, I grab it up. This one's in really good shape. It really just needs a good cleaning. It's not locked up or anything. It did have a little bit of a noise to it when I cranked it over, and I thought it was just going to be something simple, but you'll see at the end. I'm still kind of working on this one, but what a great reel. These things have caught some massive fish in the surf over the years. So we'll start out. We're taking the spool off, take the drag off of it. Turns out this one here, the drag has been set so long that it's trash. I had to replace the whole drag system on it. But the pieces were actually stuck together, which is not a good thing. You'll see here in just a second that the spots you see on those metal drag washers are actually the fiber washers are stuck to them. And this one here I had to actually peel apart, and that's not good. So I ordered a brand new drag stack from Mystic Reel Parts. You'll see it, the rebuild video of it. But you can see how bad that was. Not really fixable. I ended up upgrading to HT100 drags too, so much better drag system. Okay, so you take your handle off next. Underneath the handle is going to be a washer. I always take the handle, the knob, where I can flip the handle around. I take that loose so I can clean those threads really good. And here's the washer. And I had a hard time getting that washer off of there. It was stuck pretty good. That's unusual. They usually just fall right off. Sometimes they stick up in the handle and you don't even know they're there unless you're looking for it. And just prying on it, the thing was really stuck in there. I don't know why. It went back on a lot easier and it came off. Next up is take the cover loose. This one has a metal cover, so it's an older 704Z. The original greenies all had metal covers. When they transitioned into the Z, the black and gold, the early ones had the metal covers on them. Then they went to a plastic cover in later years. Always use the right size screwdriver for your screws so you don't butterfly anything. Everybody that does these rebuild videos on fishing reels will tell you that. You can really screw a pretty reel up fast by not using the right tools. As you can see, that's a metal cover. The next thing is to remove the crosswind lever. I'm putting it back in its place to help hold it while I get the screw loose. There is no nut that holds it to or screw that holds it to the drive gear. It just rests on there and the cover holds it against it as it's operating. And it's stuck pretty good. had to pull on it pretty hard to get it out of there. Everything's just grungy. There's a brass bushing boss that goes on that gear that the crosswind lever works back and forth. All you need to take that off and clean it really well. and push the gear out. That's pretty much it for that. And don't take all of the anti-reverse off, but do take the lever off on the 704s. I'll leave the rest of it in there. There's a small spring underneath that lever. Be careful that it doesn't fly out on you. It will stay in place most of the time. And I dropped the lever. I found it though. But there's a small spring I'm going to show you. Sometimes I take them out, but that one didn't want to fall out easily, so I said, well, it's probably not going anywhere, so I just left it alone. Just be careful when you clean it. It doesn't fly out on you when you're brushing and scrubbing the body on it. We'll take the nut off. It's a 14 millimeter or 9/16. In this case, I just use a open end or a adjustable wrench. And then this just pulls off. There's a key lock in there, a washer lock. Take that out. And we'll come back to this. This is a rubber seal. It's still available from Penn. You can get them. In fact, they still make this reel. It's just made in China now. This is an American-made reel, but they still make that exact seal. You can get it. It's like $15. It's not cheap. So be careful taking it off. Don't rip it apart. It sits on 3 pegs on that retaining plate. Just kind of carefully pop it off those pegs without tearing it. And there you go. There's a ramp on that retaining plate that goes up towards the reel seat. That's what flips the bail. Three small countersunk screws that hold the retainer on. And then just pull it out. And there's your shaft. So the body's done. The bearing should slide right off the shaft. And I cleaned that bearing up and reused it. It was still good. It had a little bit of a spot in it, but I don't think it's going to affect the operation of the reel too much. It's more a feel thing than it is a problem. And then as soon as I clean it, I lubricate it and set it aside. I'm checking the bearing. I take a tapered pin and put it down to where it touches the inner race and spin it, and that's how I get a feel for how the bearing is. It feels pretty decent. Okay, and it's lubricated, it's ready to go. Take the rotor apart. Checking the bail wire, make sure it's not bent. It looks good. These are bent a lot because people drop these reels. Take this nut off. It's a lock nut. Keep all the bail parts together here. Pull the bail wire out. There's a line guide and then there's a bushing inside of that. You have to push that bushing out. It takes me a couple of efforts here to get it out of there. Sometimes they push right out. Sometimes they're stuck like this one is. And I remembered I had a tool I made for just for those bushings. It's a plastic or nylon bushing. Just didn't want to come out of there. It was stuck pretty good. We'll try about 5 tools before I remember I have the right one. And here's the right tool. It's just a plastic or a brass tube that's the exact size and pushes that bushing right out. There's the bushing. Don't lose that. It won't work right without it. Now on the 704 you have 2 bell springs, so keep them separate. And I do that by keeping the bell spring with the sides that it comes off of. They're wound differently. They're twisted differently. So you have to get them back on the right side or he'll just break the spring first time you flip the bell. Both the screws are the same on both sides. That's what I'm showing there. And spring is stuck in there. There it goes. Now I take a piece of pipe cleaner, which I use a lot for cleaning these reels, and I basically tie that bell wire to, or bell spring to the bell wire on the side it goes with. Clean my hands up here. Just put that bell spring with that side of the wire, twist it off, and it'll let it clean it together. That way you don't have to remember by looking at the spring which side it goes on. It's pretty quick putting it back together this way. Now I'll take this side apart. And then I just basically put all the parts together and clean them here, but I'll show you something else here on this reel that just comes off. It's an easy bell spring to set, but there's a bumper right there, and this one was wore out just from the bell sitting on it for so long. And so what I do is I replace those. They're still available from Mystic. It's about $8 for that part. But let me tell you, the bell will not throw properly without it. So I replaced that and the drag system on this reel, and that was it. And we'll clean it up here and order the parts. And takes about 3 days to get parts from Mystic. I think I had $25 in parts, and that was about it. The reel still has a little bit of a noise in it here. You'll see at the end of the video. I hate to prelude to anything, but I'm still unsure where that noise is coming from. I will fix it though. But the reel is it's nice, in great shape. It doesn't need much. I don't know why it sat on a shelf for so long, but you can tell it hadn't been used very much. So just wiping off some of the excess grease off of things. And this is how I get the grease out of the teeth of the gear. I take a small eyeglass screwdriver and scrape it out. That gives the ultrasonic machine a chance to knock it all the rest of the way out of there and make it like brand new. This is a part of really deep cleaning a reel that you know, it's the details that matter, and I like to address the details. You can see all the crud coming out of those teeth. Just wiping grease off everywhere. This crosswind lever was really coated in it. Just getting the heavy stuff off before it goes into the parts washer is important. This is a Teflon washer. This is where you adjust your line lay on the spool. You can either have it, sometimes it'll lay like a cone. It'll be too heavy to the outside or too heavy to the inside. And you can adjust this by putting different size washers here. And I suspect this is where my noise is coming from, but I did address it and I couldn't get it to stop, so just wiping off that excessive grease. That stuff dries up really bad. For reals, spend any time out in the sun, in a hot car, in a storage facility that's hot, the grease will just dry right up and turn to concrete. You gotta scrape that stuff out. That's what locks these reels up. That stuff right there. So hopefully my voiceover issues will, or my audio issues will end the voiceovers. It's hard to stand here or sit here and look at a video being shot and remember exactly what I was doing. Time when it's been 3 weeks ago when I took this reel apart. So losing the audio kind of stinks, but we're going to address those issues as we go. I think I've got it figured out now. I'm just talking about the reel and what I'm going to do with it. Really like these reels, very solid. Grew up using them on the Outer Banks. Like I said, I've got probably 24 to 30 of them in my collection. I need to start letting a few of them go. I've got almost as many of these as I do the smallest version, the 716Z. Those are my favorite reels ever made. Just love working on them. They take me back to my youth when I fished with these reels, and I really enjoy them. So, not sure what I'm talking about here. Probably just about what I just talked about. And so that's it. We will be back with the repair. All right, this is John. I'm back. I think I've got the audio working now. Audio seems to be my nemesis. I got some parts in. Here is the new bumper. I had to wait a while on me. Well, it took Mystic about 3 days, but get everything from Mystic. I'm not affiliated with them, but I'll give them a shout out. Mystic Real Parts. Oh, I got that. I like that. I have about $25 in parts and shipping. I got the bumper, new drag. And I've got all this stuff brand new in boxes somewhere. I have no idea where I put it. It'll turn up in the when I'm unpacking everything at some point. There's a complete drag system. This old drag, which I worked on, but it's kind of rough. We'll keep it. Maybe someday somebody will need a new drag on their reel. Don't have the money, I'll give it to them. Okay, let's put it together. First thing is this bumper. So a little bit of oil goes a long ways with this. Oil right there on the bumper. Goes in like this. Okay. Kind of got to get it started, work it in. Be a real pain. Push on it really good. Seats it in there. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and build this reel. This reel would be used in salt water only. I can't see it being used in fresh water, so we'll put a lot of grease. We'll go in right here. You can start screw. You can catch a couple threads, pull that around. Be a little aggravating. All right. This side have the other spring. The springs are different. They have a different twist to them from one side to the other, so you don't want to mix them up. That's why I put them together like that, so I would know which side's what. I take my finger and push that lever in, get that out of the way. And spring started down in there and hold on to it. Probably the hardest part about building this reel right there. So I lost audio on the first half of this video. I think I've got that situation straightened out now, but I need to get better microphones. So be looking into that pretty soon. Now, well, I'll use some Penn oil since it's a Penn reel. It doesn't really matter. A little bit of oil. Plastic sleeve goes on there. That. More oil. The roller goes on. Little dab of grease right there. Put it in there, and you want to tighten this down, but you don't want it to be super tight. That's why it's a lock nut. They don't want you to actually jam it down tight. They want you to bring it down to where the roller still rolls. The bail's not super wiggly. Let's see if it fires. Go. All right. On to the next thing. The next thing in here is the anti-reverse dog. spring goes on there just like that. The spring hooks, it pushes against the housing, hooks on the back side of the pawl. You see that spring sticking up right there? So the spring goes here and wraps around and comes back up right there. Way when you put the anti-reverse on, it comes down and catches that cog. Okay. We don't need that part. I'll take care of that. Here is your gear. I've got it all cleaned up. You see I got all the junk out of the teeth. Coat it really good. Hold the bearing up. Set that right there for a second. I grease housing right here. Make sure you get some grease in those screw holes. And down here in that bushing. Had a few of these bearings get stuck, so that's why I always grease that. And then your plate, remember it goes on with the ramp to the top. It's these 3 screws. These can be a pain. Big fingers. Get started. One of the easier reels to build. Now this, so you get the 3 holes in it, they snap over top of pegs. This part's still available from Penn. You need to replace it. Now would be the time. Don't want to fit too good, does it? That is. Hopefully it won't rub that housing. That wouldn't be good. I may end up having to buy one of these. I thought this one would be okay, but it's weird. It shouldn't sit like that. It should sit pretty flush. Try it and see. Put some grease on those threads. Put your rotor on. Put it down. Don't look like it's sitting too good, does it? Apply a little bit this morning. There we go. Give it a pretty good snug. It's a 9/16, 14 in metric. Get messed up. Hmm. Bearing's not the best in the world. Little knock to it. Well, I didn't see that before I took it apart, so we'll have to go with what we got. I've got bearings somewhere. I'll change them out later. Um, Freeze this up good. And you can get bearings. You could spend $100 on a bearing for this reel if you wanted to. Get ABEC 7s, 5s, ceramics, you name it. They make it all. All right, before I slide that in there, give it some oil. Go ahead and put the handle on it. Got a washer. Had trouble getting that washer off. A little bit of grease on it. Let's pull that up. Always make sure those threads, because they get corroded and you can't get that freaking thing loose. Okay. See how the anti-reverse works. They don't feel too bad. And you can grease the handle, the main crankshaft up by pushing that detent ball back. Pull that shaft. All right, the only thing left, lever. Let's lubricate this really, really well. Pull this up. More grease. And this in. Some oil. This is your shaft. A little rough going in. This is odd. All right, it should be okay once I get it in there. Yeah, that's what it is. I didn't show you this. That bushing went down on the gear first. Got a little ahead of myself. Axle shaft goes in. You got a pin. Oh, that's a screw actually. That in there. All right. Put some grease in those screw holes. Really throw the grease to this. It's going to rub that cover right there. Cover is what holds that in place. Put the cover on. There's 3 screws that hold the cover. Now, a little bit of oil where this Teflon washer goes. It has to kind of snap over that shaft. Might help it a little bit. We're done with that for now. Let's work on the drag. A little bit of oil in that line out clicker. Now you drag. I got a new snap ring too. That's nice. If I remember correctly, it's one of these, then Teflon, then a keyed, then one of your HT100s. And then the ear, they call this an eared washer, but it's a hex washer. Then the HT100. And then a keyed washer, and then snap ring. Off any excess oils. Get your washers all lined up and in place. And, that one's trying to pop out. That's odd. Don't behave like that. There we go. Then your little bit of grease there on that. Those threads, just to protect those threads from corrosion. And wipe it all down. There it is, folks. 704Z. You hear it's got just a little bit of a. That spool was catching the rotor. So, where that's happening at. Sometimes you have to add washers here, depending upon how they stack. I think it's hitting right there. No two reels are the same, I can tell you that. Scraping off a little bit of that plastic right there. If it's helping or not. That's the only thing I could hit. Let's see what happens. Nope. Right as it goes down, it catches that plastic up in there. And that's probably why this reel wasn't used very much. It had an issue. And that's unfortunate. Let's do some stuff. Sorry for my big head being in the camera there, but we're gonna go in here and do a little dental work. Did take that out, but take the reel back apart to do that. Let's see if it takes it. Better. Sometimes you gotta be a dentist. Gosh, just barely touching it. Here. Well, all you can do is keep trying. It's pretty close. Whoops. That's it. I'll just knock the microphone off. I finally got working. If I pull this plate off, I'll have a hell of a time getting that spring back on there the way it's. I'd have to take the whole rotor back apart. I don't really want to do that today. Seems to be catching right there. Let's see what I can do to it. A little more room to work here. Not sure why that. I've never had one do that before. Maybe why this reel didn't have many. Didn't have much use to it. I didn't like the way it was making that noise. Put it down. Got just a slight little bit right at the very bottom of the stroke. Right there. I don't like it. Not happy with that. Not sure why it's doing that. It might be those screws. They're probably hitting. Nah, it would be more random. I'm not happy with that either. Turned out to be a bit of an aggravating reel. You tell me, folks. You tell me. whole lot of work to get a little bit of a noise out of it. Hitting something in there. Spools had a little bit of a rough life. Somebody was kind of hard on it there with a pair of pliers or something. I'd probably replace the spool. I like the black spool though. I think it's kind of interesting. Right, let's see. I'm not doing anything to get rid of that. I'm starting to wonder if maybe the shaft isn't bent. Sometimes they get dropped, and I'm just noticing that scuff on the spool where it might have hit something and bent the shaft. But when you pull it up even, it looks pretty even. That's the best I can do with it, folks. I don't know why it's like that. It's not bad. I'd fish it, but I'm not crazy about it. It's a nice reel otherwise. Well, this is John Vintage Fisherman. Sometimes I can't make them all perfect, but I can get close. I didn't try it to make sure it would throw the bail. It does. Pretty good. Can't complain. Anti-reverse works. Anti-reverse, I guess you could say. But see, it's just got that, like it's just barely touching something at the bottom of the stroke. It drives me freaking bananas. If I were fishing, it would drive me nuts. If I had something I could put right there. Let's do this. This is just an old drag washer out of something. Let's see if it'll fit on there. I doubt it will. No, it's just a little bit too small diameter. Well, ain't that something? Hmm. Well, I don't really have anything I can fix this with. That's just barely too small. Go over that. Just a piece of brass. Let's see if I can make it go. Sometimes you got to get a little assertive with it. Now the next question will be, how's it going to spool the line? You know, if it builds a line to outside of the inside, then it's going to have to be shimmed, and that's going to suck. That's how you adjust how smooth the line goes on the reel. Is you shim it right there where the spool meets the shaft, and it didn't make any difference. Well, I don't know what to do with it. That tells me it's hitting the side. I'm not crazy about that knocking, that's for sure. I can be smoother than that. So this one's to be continued. If I find it, I'll come back with another video. This is John Bench Fisherman. Sometimes we don't win them all. So like the video if you enjoyed the entertainment, and subscribe to my channel. I've got more videos coming.